I think increasingly with the AI world, we're going to need to focus on what's human. And what's human isn't always what's optimal or what's most efficient. What's human
Mhm.
isn't prettiest. What's human isn't always successful, but what's human is human. Sharing that and being with people, I think, is a whole different language. If you're willing to talk openly, watch what it does for your life. Watch what it does. Just people being honest with other people and making themselves vulnerable is the magic. Terrible things are happening because people feel so disconnected. And it's not
Sure.
just about feelings, it's about the health of people, families. You got to have those real
Mhm.
conversations. And, they always say, have a friend, be one. I find to have a friend, make yourself vulnerable. We need to talk about this stuff. We need to talk about it a lot.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Stephanie Marie, and I'm on a mission to spread hope, sharing people's stories to encourage, inspire, and empower you. Today, I'm so excited to talk with Bill O'Reilly, an advisor to the Radical Hope Foundation, partner at the November team, a New York-based corporate communications firm, and a longtime former columnist for Newsday. He has served as a strategist and spokesman for candidates, causes, and private corporations across the nation for more than 30 years, regularly appearing on television, radio, and in national print media. We talked about cultivating balance, fostering resilience, finding peace, and everything in between. So without further ado, let's begin. Hi, Bill. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This is really amazing.
Stephanie, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be on here. I've seen some of your other shows. They are terrific. I saw the Aaron Taylor one this week, and you guys just had some kind of serious conversation. But what you're doing is so important, and I think this show is going to explode because I think you're on the cutting edge, the vanguard of your generation, and the wisdom that you have already stumbled across and gained through hard work is what a lot of people need. So this is absolutely wonderful. Thank you for doing it.
Thank you, Bill, for being here. Thank you for saying that. I've known you for the last 4 years. Throughout my time in college, we worked on different projects and also media appearances when it came to a national nonprofit that you are an advisor for, Radical Hope Foundation. And we can
Yep.
also talk about your work there as well. But I was really very privileged to meet you through that and be able to have you on today. So thank you so much. This is amazing.
Yeah, it was such a great opportunity and to meet everybody at Pace, which is just amazing.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, Radical Hope is an organization that started in 2008 following the suicide of a young man at Gonzaga University. And his family and a lot of others, including some very, very resourceful people, kind of banded together and they put together a group for young people to get together on college campuses and talk about life and learn
Mhm.
skills, resilience skills, and like really important ones. And as you know, Stephanie, because you've been right in the middle of it, the organization just took off. And I think it's on 76 campuses now. The NFL is using it
Mhm.
and Major League Baseball is using it. And it's so that's how we met. And and I guess that's why we're here today. But there's always bigger life stories to go along with it.
Yeah, and I think really like what Radical Hope is doing is like making that space for people to have those open conversations. And it
Yep.
was just a really great experience. And so I'm so happy to continue having those conversations with people. So I'd like to begin by asking you, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how that led you to where you are today?
Sure, sure. It's kind of a long one. I'm 62 and feeling every minute of it. So for the last 40 years, I've worked as a PR consultant and political consultant based in New York, but I've been fortunate to be able to do stuff all over the country and a little bit around the world as well. And it's really kind of miraculous that I was able to do that. And it only came about because of the help of other people. I came from a really great family, brothers and sisters, wonderful. I was the black sheep of seven
Wow.
and kind of constantly in trouble, went through, three different high schools and then ended up at 16 in a 3-year drug rehab called Daytop Village. And it was supposed to be kind of a scared straight program. I was always trouble. I was always, as a kid, just always seeking something and not finding it and acting out and the rest of it and doing, terrible stuff. So my parents sent me there for, I think, a summer to scare me. It was a lot of veterans, former prisoners, and normal people that kind of normal kids that had a really hard time. And I ended up spending 3 years there and I loved it. And then was able to get into NYU through a miracle because I took a GED to get through high school because 10th grade was my last year. And then just slowly started to, putting the career together. But over those years, in those days, the addiction model of the treatment programs wasn't the same as it is now. So at Daytop, it was very tough. It was, shaved heads, scrub floors, screaming, that kind of stuff. It still exists and it's a wonderful program, but it wasn't like it used to be. It would have been illegal today, but it worked for a lot of us. So I started drinking, but I knew right away it was going to get me eventually. I drank even with a successful career, lots of good stuff going on at my own company. When I started drinking, I couldn't stop. And I hated to admit that. And it was very difficult to say I couldn't because I come from a family, my father's would always tell us, the famous 10 two-letter words. If it is to be, it is up to me. So it's all like determine yourself. Like
Mm.
you can quit this on your own kind of thing. And what I found out is that when I did drink, I just didn't stop. I was able to deal with that. And so eventually I got into AA and I've been sober for 21 years, but it was all because of other people. Like I went in there not particularly wanting to be in either of those programs, but other people saved me. And the friends I grew up with who didn't get help all died. Suicides, a lot of
Wow.
suicides, and a lot of overdoses. So it's very sad. So I've had this really good career in politics and PR. I wrote a column 2 days a week for Newsday for 11 years. And I wrote about a lot of this stuff while I was doing it because it's a responsibility to do that. You have to go back and say, hey, you're not alone to the ones that are still out there. And we're all still out there to some extent. So, but it was all because of other people. It's hard to admit, but other people saved my life and they continue to today, day by day.
Thank you for sharing that, Bill.
Of
And I
course.
know that the story really resonates with a lot of people. You've also
Yep.
talked, very openly about your struggle with panic attacks. Can you tell us about your experience? What practices, tools, mindset shifts helped you the most? And what's your advice to people really struggling with panic attacks or any mental health or physical health challenges?
It's amazing that you're asking me that. It's been, 30 years of this.
Hmm.
And I've never really been asked that. So thank you. That's a great because
You're
you do
welcome.
pick up, information at some point. So I started getting panic attacks. I was about 25. I had a terrible breakup with someone I thought I was going to marry. And I kind of went into a
Hmm.
tailspin. And I was working in the restaurant business at the time. I was working a breakfast catering event. And boom, I got hit with something that felt like lightning in the brain. And I was convinced that it was a cerebral hemorrhage because my mother died of that at 31. And the
Oh,
aunt that died
wow.
of it, a grandfather and a cousin who had it. And so I was pretty sure that that's what it was. And I didn't say anything to anybody. I mean, right there, I said, I've got to go to the hospital, but I didn't go. And I kind of worked through it. And then this stuff kept coming back and coming back. And it was like, for me, I'd never heard of panic attack disorder. It wasn't diagnosed yet. For me, I was the most confident person in the world. I was like, if there was a kid and you'd say, well, anyone climb to the top of that pine tree? Like, I was the idiot that would do it. You know what I mean? I was always like, fip, 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 or doing the thing that everyone was scared to do. And
Hmm.
suddenly I was diminished to this, where I was afraid to be like in open spaces, Grand Central stadiums. I felt like I was going to go nuts. I would my heart rate would go. It completely took over my life. And the way that I dealt with it, and I knew that it was the wrong way to deal with it, was to drink. And if I got 4 or 5 drinks down, the panic was gone. And, if you get 15, it's even better. And then I'd wake up with a hangover and the anxiety and the panic from the hangover would start all over again. So it was a bit of a nightmare and I pulled off that life for a lot of years with nobody noticing it. I mean, I'll give you this funny
Hmm.
stories. I once went for a treatment program at Payne Whitney in the city. It was a experimental program to find out what was going on with this new thing called panic attacks. I'm sure they've been around forever. And one of the things they were trying to teach was do things that elicit a panic attack or trigger one, and then do it again and do it
Huh.
again and do it again. You want to get used to it. So one of the exercises they gave me was to spin around and make myself dizzy because dizziness was the first thing that would warn of a panic attack and boom, it would start to hit. And so I was supposed to turn around and spin around every night for like 10 minutes. But of course I didn't do it. I was young. I was in my 20s. I was like, come on. Even though it was a terrible thing, I was still too lazy to do it or I was out boozing or doing something dumb. So I just didn't do it. So one night, and in the city, I was working in politics in a kind of very high end scene. It was like, it was back in the 80s and early 90s. And I was at Tavern on the Green one night, and it was the worst. It was a lot of mirrors in the restaurant there, tons of them. And so it's just built for a panic attack. And whenever I would go to cocktail parties, which was almost every night for my work in politics, I'd have to stick by the walls because if I walk into the middle of the room, I would get literally, I'd be like spinning around like you're going to fall down. And I've forgotten now how bad it was. And you're doing this while talking to somebody, you're sweating like crazy, you're shaking hands and you're trying to look normal, and they can't tell what's going on inside you. So it's crazy. So I remember a funny story is I'm in a tuxedo, it's black tie event. I go into the men's room and there's no one in there of Tavern on the Green. And I think, I better do this spinning thing now. It's not too late. So I start spinning around in the bathroom and Congressman Bill Green walks in. And there is Billy O'Reilly in the bathroom in a tuxedo spinning around. And Congressman Green, I've never told this story. Congressman Green said, Bill, let's just say we've never seen this before. We never saw this. I said, that's a deal, Congressman. And we never spoke about it again. But it was like a nightmare like that day by day. And then, eventually I got help for it because I quit drinking at 40. I was getting remarried and I suddenly had 2 step children and a third on the way. And so I gave up drinking. But the best advice I can give for anybody with panic attacks,
Mhm.
besides going the medicine route, which worked for me, I'm sure it doesn't work for everybody, is don't run away from it no matter what you do. If you have panic attacks and you're trying to avoid a situation or an area, and if you do avoid it, it will get bigger. The fear will get bigger. And that's how people get trapped in their homes. I had what's called agoraphobia panic attack, which is fear of big open spaces. And just out of nowhere, again, I'm the kid in the tree. I'm the kid climbing up and like walking on roofs and over bridges at 3 in the morning, with friends. And I couldn't step into an open space. So if you start to limit yourself, you'll end up locking yourself in your house, and it can get really, really bad. So force yourself. I found one little thing in the city, and I still get this once in a while I'm from the city. I grew up on
Mhm.
93rd Street, spent 40 years in the city. But whenever I cross an avenue, I still get the anticipatory, like it's going to happen. I would get it when I was walking across the street. And if you try and go faster, anyone with panic attacks will realize this, to avoid it, it gets worse until you get to the other side. What you have to do
Mm.
is try and make it worse. For me, this is just my little trick, was if I had to walk from point A to point B and there was panic in between, I would say, all right, panic, like do your best. And I would walk as slowly as possible without looking like a crazy person in Manhattan
Oh.
across it. And once I started to do that, it would dissipate it. It was like, all right, big guy, come hit me now. And the big guy wasn't so big. So, but those were little things that got me to the point where I could, I was always functioning, and I made myself function. I had to once speak. I was 25 years old, and I had to go to City Hall, and there were about 6,000 people in the park, and I had to follow Mario Cuomo, who was a great speaker. And I didn't even know where I was. My head was spinning. I was there. I got up and gave a speech, and like a couple people were nice to me, but it was just really difficult years. So as you get older and you mature a little bit and you begin to trust in other people and realize you don't have all the answers yourself, things get much, much better, like much better.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, that's interesting about what that group had told you, the advice about the spinning. But I think in the scheme of it, it's interesting because I think that the panic attack leads people to avoid those places and spaces or events that trigger that. But what the advice is that you have to, like in little increments, keep putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations. And then
Yes.
eventually over time, I guess you tell me, I guess the idea is that it gets easier and easier. In
Yes,
that sense.
but it's so hard to do when you're like, I'm trying to remember how bad it was, but when you're in the
Mhm.
throes of it, I remember
Yes.
thinking to myself, I deserve a Medal of Honor for walking out my door today. Like it was like
Mm.
that bad, where it was almost like you're pushing through physical structure to get out the door. You know what I mean? And it's like you just do this, and like I can't let this get me. And so you go out there and you do it. And there was some rough years, but I drank my way through it, and that almost killed me. So people cope in ways that they find, and they're not always the best coping mechanisms. For me, my instinct is to do the worst coping mechanisms. My instinct is to find something that makes me feel better and keep doing it, whether it's drugs or booze or food or anything. That's my instinct, is to like, this makes me feel better. Do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. And people have stuff. People have a lot of mental health issues. Very few people talk about it, but we need to talk about this stuff. We need to talk about it a lot. The thing, Stephanie, just move it a little bit towards the radical hope conversation, which is where I met
Mhm.
you, is the thing that was most important to me. And I shouldn't talk about me so much, but it was the peer model. To me, the peer
Yes.
model is everything. Because I had been to a couple psychologists and family counseling when I was a kid, and they were all very nice and trying to help, but it was like getting called to the principal. When you're young,
Mhm.
it's just like, in trouble or this or that. You just, it's really tough to do. When I went to Daytop, there wasn't a single professional in that place. It was all real people. I didn't realize it at the time, but that made such a difference. When I went to AA years later, which I thought was like a very light program after Daytop, I was like, oh, AA, that's nothing. That peer model is what works. It's just people being honest with other people and making themselves vulnerable in front of other people is the magic. And it's the magic of radical hope, frankly. I mean, you
Mm.
learned, Stephanie, you taught the
I
program,
did.
and you probably learned great stuff like the sleep habits or the this or the managing your life or listening
Yes.
skills and radical hope skills, all those little soft skills. But none of it matters if there's not human interaction. That's the magic. When you go
It's like
into
the
a room,
power of, yeah. I think
yeah,
even that's like what Aaron Taylor was speaking about was like that power of the shared experience or doing it together. Like if you're struggling and, sometimes we think, oh, well, we can do it on our own or I've got this. like that overconfidence, like you were saying, where it's
Yeah.
like, but no, you really do need to do it with others because that's really the best way to learn and the best way to heal is with others.
And what I found when people used to say that, I always thought it was like a kumbaya thing. Like, oh, all
Yeah,
together.
yeah,
I kind of run from that a little bit. Like I'm kind of
yeah.
individualistic. But when I found out it's not kumbaya, it's human necessity. It's biology.
It is.
It's like we have
It
to
is.
be around one another. It's biology. I mean, look at what happened during COVID. I mean, I had a daughter almost died. She went down to about 82 pounds
Wow.
and she's doing great now. She's fantastic. But I was like, this, like COVID's doing this. 'Cause we're a loving household and we're all close and talking every day. It's just
Mhm.
that when you're isolated from other people and your peers, we now know in a very dramatic way nationally that, people fall apart. A lot of people fall apart.
Wow,
If you
that's
get a crack,
terrible.
it's gonna keep cracking.
It is like that loneliness, I think people think, like you said, where we think we can do it on our own, but then we think, oh, well, I'm not lonely. And then you really start to experience that loneliness. And I think that changes the outlook on life.
No, that's right. And at the same extent, you could be on a bus and you sit next to an old lady and you tell each other your life story. You ever have one of those? Like a total stranger, and we just told each other's life stories, and we were so connected. We knew we'd never see each other again probably, but it was just you get that. But we should be able to do that with friends too. And,
Those are important. Yeah. Those conversations are important. There's beauty in that. And then there's also beauty in like having friendships and being open. And I think this kind of comes down to the stigma of it. And you can tell me, I'm sure there was more stigma and maybe perhaps they're making efforts towards it now. But I think really starting those conversations is going to eventually lead to breaking that stigma.
yeah, and I think we're well on our way on the stigma side. I mean, I was involved with it early and everybody knew it, like all my old friends, and it was the great embarrassment. You went off to some. I honestly didn't really care that much, but it was like it was out there. But then AA has and I don't speak for AA certainly, what I mean, but they have a term. You can't keep it if you don't give it away, meaning that you got to share your knowledge. And I see
Mhm.
or many more people doing that now in columns and op-eds. I did a few op-eds on that, but other people are out there telling their truth and people hear it and it makes a huge difference. But I think something incredibly important, Stephanie, and I know it's one of the reasons that you're doing the show, I imagine, is the technology changes in your generation are making this much, much, much more difficult. And I don't think we need to speculate anymore. I mean, we used to say 10 years ago, "Oh, the kids aren't playing in the neighborhood like they used to when we were little." That's now times 10. And
Mhm.
we've created a world, for no bad reason. It's just the way it worked out. It was the way industry worked out and technology worked out, where we can silo everybody into everything. And the effect on your generation is traumatic. And so that's why I think your show and your words and your care for this issue is unlimited in potential because people need to hear
Thank you.
this. Your generation needs to hear this. It's essential for living.
Thank you for saying that. I think like the technology is like the cause in most cases of like this loneliness, but I think if you can use it and like fuel it in a way where,
Yeah.
okay, well, everyone's on their phones anyway, so at least try to fuel it in a way where you do try to break that silos, like you said. Yeah.
That's right. And there's no we're not going back. We're not going backwards. We're not going to ban
Mm.
technology. We're not going to ban AI. Like that's not going to happen. So we're all going to have to, and I say we, I mean individuals and parents. And I wasn't good enough at this, but we're going to need to be, to use a very popular word right now, intentional. We're going to have to
Hmm.
intentionally put our kids with other kids, to be around them with no phones, to play, to fight, to fall down, to rub mud on it, to
Yeah.
to break up with their fifth grade girlfriend and boyfriend, and all those things teach you life, and they teach you those resilient skills. Not everything is easy. Life is hard, and it gets harder. It
Hmm.
gets harder as you get older. The coping skills are everything, and so that's what we're trying to do at Radical Hope, is teach those basic coping skills, but also to break that bubble of superficiality that's out there universally. You got to have those real
Hmm.
conversations. You got to make yourself vulnerable. And, they always say, have a friend, be one. I find to have a friend, make yourself vulnerable. And they immediately respond to me too, or let's talk about that more. Or I've got a cousin, I got a friend. And
Yes.
suddenly you're in a whole different world. You're in,
Mm.
like, you've seen it in the groups. You've seen it in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think exactly. And, I think this leads into what's your advice for people in my generation who are struggling with feelings of hopelessness, all types of experiences that people are struggling like with loneliness, their mental and physical health. What's your message to them?
One is to volunteer. to work for other people. That does wonders. And most
Hmm.
recently, I saw that during the beginnings of COVID. I was spinning out a little bit. I mean, nobody would know it, but in my own mind, I was. I thought the world was going to collapse. And so it was, it's scary times. So then I started thinking, you're being so selfish. You have friends that are probably in the same situation. So I called a couple of friends that I hadn't talked to for a while, and indeed they were. And I found myself kind of helping them out, and that's helped me out, and vice versa. Like, you help each other by helping others. So
Hmm.
volunteerism or just helping somebody else out is a great thing to do for young people. Like, get involved, get out there, try so hard to force yourself from isolation. I mean,
Hmm.
isolate for people with addictions, isolation is a key factor, but most people aren't addicts. But isolation will let your head spin out. You'll get inside your own head. You'll start to, they hate me. I'm not this. I'm not good enough. Why am I? I mean, all that kind of stuff goes, and you really can't know who you are until you run into other people and tell them who you are, really, and they do the
Right.
same, and then that's good. So the other thing is to with AI coming, like writing and poetry and painting and music and all
Hmm.
those things, they're
The
beginning to
creativity.
dissipate. Yeah, they're you can hear it out there in the music, you see it in the world. Try and keep those skills even though you're not going to need them, or find an outlet that's going to do what writing and art do today. You can't,
Hmm.
if writing and art is not your thing, but those little outlets, do help you get your thoughts out there and your feelings out there and make structure out of what you're going through. But to me, the whole thing is other people, other people. Be around other people. If you're really, really down, go find somebody more down than you and help them out. Go give them a call and say, I haven't
Hmm.
talked to you for a while. You okay? Or you could say, an old friend, you haven't talked to me for a while. I'm spinning out.
Yeah.
So
Also letting
it
people know what you need. Like it can be hard, like you said, with isolation when you're struggling. The first response can be to isolate. But I think letting people know how they can help you. And I had talked about this on another episode where like letting people know that you are struggling. And again, most people maybe wouldn't
the one.
respond, in the favorable way, but maybe that one person will. People are not going to know that someone's struggling. Like you said, we can like put on this persona and this mask at times, and you
That's
have
right.
to let people know. You have to let people
Yeah,
know
and
how to help you.
there's almost two languages going on right now. There's, English that we speak, but it's that superficial English. I touched on that before. The other language is the language of realness. And that's what I feel like we're walking away from.
Mm,
I think increasingly with the AI world, we're going to be in threat of that. Increasingly, we're going to need to focus on what's human, and what's human isn't always what's optimal or what's most efficient. What's human
mhm.
isn't the prettiest. What's human isn't logical. What's human isn't always successful. But what's human is human. We're animals, we're spirits, and we're trying to get through this as spirits. We don't really know where we are. We're trying to figure it out. And so sharing that and being with people, I think, is a whole different language. If you're willing to talk openly and again vulnerably, you'll get that back, and watch what it does for your life. Watch what it does.
Thank you for saying that. That's so true. That really resonates with me. I really like that piece of the creativity. That is so important. That is definitely an outlet for me of like I need to be creating. I need that like space and time to just think, be away from all phones, like do that digital detox. I think even Radical Health was talking about one of the videos about digital detox, and it's so important to have healthy coping skills. Like we need to cope it in healthy ways. Like you said, speaking with others, having that creative outlet, doing good works for other people. That's really good advice.
I've had friends in the past who would, when they're really down, they clean, they do something, they take some
Hmm.
kind of action. There's also a
Yeah.
lot of programs use the term, which is pretty universally understood now, as act as if, but that's really powerful. Act as if means you want to go home and you can't believe you got invited to this stupid thing. Act as if you're having a good time. And what people have found is that you start to have a good time. Act as if you like your
Hmm.
job. Act as if you care. Act as, just act your way through it a little bit, and it gets you into a different mindset. It doesn't put you into a different person. You're not acting make believe. It's just you're putting your best self forward. And often that changes what's going on around you. Like we've talked about this, Stephanie, like science has caught up with what we've known for a long time. Like you always say, people make people happy and, things like that. It's when you smile at somebody, the endorphins go off, we now know, in both people.
Mm.
You say good morning. You feel good and I feel good as we pass each other. Don't even know each other. Like little things like
Yeah,
that really make a difference. And so
it
just like
does.
being when you're down, when I'm down, I can go into the world and I hate everybody and it's like the world is this and it's all closing in and we're all nuts and all the rest of the stuff. And then you walk by someone and you just force yourself to say, hi, good morning. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, just to break out of that a little bit. Because
Yeah.
when you're in
Like
your
come
own
out of
head,
ourselves.
but also when you're in
Yeah,
your own, you can convince yourself of hopelessness. You have no one to compare your thoughts with and to relate with. Terrible things are happening because people feel so disconnected. And it's not
sure.
just about feelings, it's about the health of people, families, country. So it's important.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And I want to talk about, we talked a little bit about like cultivating balance, fostering resilience, finding clarity and peace. Can we talk a little bit about those aspects? You kind of said those were like your themes. If you were to have themes of your story, right? We talked
I'll start
about
with the
those.
first, which is the balance. And the balance has always eluded. I've never been able to find balance. And I'm still looking for
Mm,
it. I'm 62. And when I live in rabbit holes, like when I work like a maniac. Like I'll get in a campaign and I'll just drop everything in the world. And all I can think about 24 hours a day is the campaigns I'm on. I went to Cuba about 6 years ago. I had a daughter who was taking a semester at University of Havana. And so I went to visit and when I was there, I was like, I should bring some Cuban cigars back. And I never smoked cigars. I quit cigarettes, 21 years ago. But I thought I'm here. I should bring them back for friends that smoke Cubans. I was allowed to. So I brought them back. Nobody was around. So I started smoking the Cubans. Within a month, I had 150 cigars. Now I have 1,000. Like I do everything in an imbalanced way. And balance,
okay.
the people that I've seen that are most successful in life and are most grounded are people that are balanced. And they take care. Another thing, I've worked with a lot of really impressive people over the years in politics, like some of the smartest people in the world. And the ones that, if you really want to get ahead, like big time, and this has nothing to do with human relations, just pure professional, they take care of the problems right away. The hardest things that come up, they address right away. I don't do that. I put it off. I still do that. 62. I put it off. I put it off. Don't open that mail. It might be a bill. My God, you know what I mean? Like I'll put it off. But I find that people who are balanced, that's something that they do, and it's really, really effective, where they'll know today something's wrong, my taxes are off or something is off, and they will immediately go and address that thing to get rid of the
Hmm.
anxiety of that. And I imagine over time that gives you a great deal of confidence and a great deal of success. So, there's plenty of tips out there, but the main on the balance, absolutely, that's what I'm seeking, balance. And I think balance is probably the key to nature at the end. The
Yeah.
balance of nature, it applies to us as well. We live in it. We're part of it. We are nature. So that's there. But I'll always come back to the other people, interacting with other people.
The next one is fostering resilience.
You got to get back on that horse. You just
Mm,
have to. I learned that. I mean, I think I already had that from my father. He had been through a lot. He had lost a wife. He was shot twice in World War II. He was in the
oh,
war,
oh,
and so there was no quit in our household. It wasn't there. But that resilience is everything. It's what I say to my daughter, when my youngest daughter, when she can't take it anymore. Nothing else will work. Nothing else will make her feel better. I say, "Suck it up, soldier." And she starts to laugh. Like life is falling apart. She has no friends. She's this. She doesn't belong here. All this kind of stuff. Like, and really like thought through woes. You know what I mean? Like really detailed stuff. And I'll say, "Suck it up, soldier." And she starts laughing. She's like, "Yeah, I know." You know what I mean? Sometimes you just need a little of that. But the resilience it's more than just getting up. It's the confidence it builds. You know what I mean? I mean, it's
yeah,
like
that's true.
anyone who struggled with any mental health stuff, and that's pretty much everybody. Like everybody just about goes through something, whether it's adolescence or shortly afterwards or old age.
Hmm.
That resilience is everything. And if you can keep getting back up again, you no longer even view it as getting up. It's just life, you know?
And I think it goes back to the talk about the panic attacks that you had because the resilience piece comes from keep doing the things that are hard.
Yeah, yeah. And you can say like anxiety is hard. Yeah. So right, if for panic attack, if your panic attacks in movie theaters, which I had a little bit for a while, and you want
Hmm.
to sit on the aisle so you can escape, don't sit against the wall. Make it awful for yourself. Make it
Mm,
awful for yourself. If you can't take
yeah,
it, move.
that's true.
But take
That's
it as long as
true.
you can. There's just no shortcut.
And then the last one was about clarity and peace.
Clarity and peace. I guess it's what we're all looking for, isn't it? People find it on different ways. I find it going into empty churches. I like to sit in church, not during mass, but when, just Tuesday at 5:30 or 4 or something like that, I'm driving by or Saturday. and just kind of sitting and being still. Meditation, if I have not done
Yes.
enough work with meditation. I've tried to get into the habit, but it's tough. I have friends that are religiously into meditation, and it really they seem very together, to be honest with you. It may be a good thing. But meditation is, I mean, if you learn that you can calm yourself down, if you're 16 or 17 or 20 or 19, whatever, young age, and you're like wigging out, and the first thing that happens with panic attacks and with other conditions, you don't even notice it, but your breathing changes and you don't change.
Mm,
It's imperceptible, but your breathing starts to go shallow and all kinds of physiological stuff is going on in your brain and you don't know what it is. Breathing can change all of that. Like, it's like, holy smokes. Like, if you really do good breathing techniques, and by the way, when I was in my 20s and going through that program, they told me that. And I would try the breathing and I'd instantly have a panic attack and stop. What I learned later on is that I should have kept going because you can control a lot with your breathing. You can change your attitude for the day. You can change your day. You can change anything just by getting still and just quieting the mind and just kind of, letting it go. So there were a lot of things to do, but they all involve resilience. They all involve
yes.
saying, I'm not going to listen to myself right now. I'm going to sit down for 15 minutes and be quiet. You have to
Yeah,
force yourself to
I
do
think that's a really good advice. And my final question, which is what role has hope played in your journey so far and how do you hold on to it today?
I've always had it. I've been very lucky with that. I've always assumed, like, I believe in God, which helps, and I've always assumed that everything's going to work out at the end. That's just my nature. But when you don't have that, when it starts to go dark, and it's dark for a lot of people
Mhm.
right now in the world, it's when you don't have that, things can look, pretty dank. I would say that hope starts with other people too, a little bit. And if you can't get yourself on track, try and help somebody else and watch what happens then. Just listen to somebody. When I say try and
Mm.
help them, it doesn't mean you don't need to answer their questions or solve their problems. Just listen to them and show them that you're listening and watch what happens to both of you. If anyone watching this just tries that once, watch what happens. And it could be
Mm.
life changing.
I think that's interesting because sometimes it's harder to help ourselves. It's easier to go
Absolutely.
on and help someone else. And then in that helping someone else, you're going to learn more about yourself, one, and then you're going to in turn help yourself as well. So
Right.
I think
Which is
that's
different, by the way, than saying, like, what there's a term called taking somebody else's inventory. Some people, when they're hating
Mhm.
themselves, poke out at everybody else. And it's you know, like, I'm upset with myself. You start to, like, look at everybody else and criticize them. But, like, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about genuinely listening to somebody and saying, I don't have an answer, but I hear you. I hear you. It makes a
Yeah,
huge
I know
difference.
what you mean, where it's like we're kind of naturally, almost as if when we're upset, we kind of focus on others, but kind of reversing it. So when you are being upset towards yourself, do the kindness towards others, and in turn, you'll get that kindness back.
Exactly.
'Cause
Yep.
yeah, yeah,
I also find it's
that's a good point.
a silly thing, Stephanie. It's when I'm kind of
Hmm.
upset with myself and I'm not sure why, I go in my head, like, if I was to yell at myself right now, what would I say?
Hmm.
Just let rip. And when you let rip, the real stuff comes out. And so sometimes you don't even know why you're upset with yourself or what you're doing. So I imagine in my head yelling at myself and I can quickly identify where I'm erring and then say, okay, fix
Or
that or not.
you could also say, some people say, well, when you're speaking to yourself, because sometimes we're our worst and harshest critic, you say, would I speak to someone else like that? And you wouldn't
True.
usually.
True. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure mine's not healthy, but I went through daytime. So. But it works for me. The point is
yeah,
it
it
works.
did. It
You
did.
do yourself to get
That's a
through.
really good point.
But my message to young people, if I can have one message, is
Hmm.
everything's going to be fine. Don't freak out. You know what I mean? It's fine. There's nobody that much better or smarter or anything than anybody else is. It's like we all get through, we do it. Things get dark, things get light, things get dark, things get light. Just keep going. Keep going. But do it with other people because we are by nature, like primordially, we are clan people. We're clan people. That's what human beings are, biologically clannish. And so if you separate from the clan, you're going to die in the vine. To mix terribly metaphors.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. I really think what your story is speaking to me is really the power of connection. I think doing it with other people and how you give back in your work as an advisor of Radical Hope and how you give back to other people through volunteering. I think this is, a really great testament to, you've learned so much and you just want to pass it on to other people and especially people in my generation. Thank you so much, Bill, for this conversation. I feel like we've known each other for a while, but we never really
Yeah.
sat down and like actually had a conversation like this. So thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, it's been an absolute joy, and I can't wait to see all of your shows. I mean, you're just on it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Message has resonated with you, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment down below letting us know what has been your favorite piece of advice that Bill has shared. I really think that Bill's story goes to show that if you want to make tangible changes in your life, it starts with those little choices each and every day, and you have to be the one to do that. No one's going to do that for you. You have to be the one to choose to change your life. I think that he's a beautiful example of that, and he's living that, and he's passing that on to us today. Click the bell notification so you get notified when I release a new episode. And let us know down below what has been your favorite part that Bill has shared with us today. Thank you for listening and have a fabulous day. Bye.